Welp, Thomas is officially dead, and Mattel killed it. So the new Thomas and Friends reboot, Big World, Big Adventures, premiered in the UK recently, and not long after, a couple episodes aired in Italy. And, of course, they confirmed all of my suspicions. For those of you who don't know, Thomas and Friends was announced to be undergoing a soft reboot last year, and this year its effects finally came to fruition. So first off, Edward and Henry are gone. They're done. Oh, but they're still gonna be in the show. Yeah, kind of like how Stanley is still in the show, Stafford is still in the show, Charlie is still in the show. Just because a character is in the show doesn't mean they're gonna use them. Sure, they've had a couple speaking roles, but it's like Duck appears more than Edward and Henry in the new show. Like, come on. So when they got rid of Edward and Henry, they announced that they were replacing them with two new characters, of course, female. It's another Emily situation. So the first one is an African engine named Nia, who was introduced in the movie, and her personality is literally, she's a tank engine from Africa, so, you know, good job there. And then the other is introduced in season 22, her name is Rebecca, who has a really cool basis, and I'm kind of upset that they wasted it. Basically, she's like this shy, tender engine. It's like the strong woman type, which is like, okay, I get it, you know, push more female. But even freaking Ian McHugh has said, oh, well, we have plenty of female characters, but with a show like Thomas, they tend to fade into the background. I'm like, so freaking use them! I have zero experience with business, and I can tell you, if you want females to be more represented, use the ones you already have. Now, I think people would be a little bit less hurt if Nia and Rebecca hadn't replaced Edward and Henry, if they had just like added them to the main cast. Toby, I don't even know what the deal is with Toby anymore, because sometimes they say he's part of the STEAM team, which shouldn't be a concept anymore, by the way, and sometimes he's not. Now, the other big thing is obviously the show is about Thomas traveling the world for the first half of the season, which is, you know, okay, you know, if they want to shake things up, that's fine. Here's the real freaking problem, though. They made it so that there's no more narration at all. That's been a staple of the series since the beginning, and now it's just gone. And so now what they haven't said is, at the beginning of the episode, they have Thomas jump over Gordon's Hill, land at the bottom, ride on one rail, and then he just stops abruptly at the bottom, and he's like, hey kids, today I'm going to tell you about a lesson I just learned. And so then it cuts into the episode from there. I just find it funny that they felt like they had to start talking to the kids. No TV show does that anymore. Like, the last show that did that was Dora, and that's pretty much dead now. And then they have this whole thing where they're like pushing global goals. Do you really think kids watch a show about talking trains to learn about global goals? People watch this show because it's an escape from the real world, not pushing real world stuff into the show. Now, yes, the show was always somewhat realistic, but it never pushed real world stuff like that into the show. The other big push is that they're including more animals in the stories. That's like the new big selling point, which, of course, they say, oh, well, our viewers wanted more animals. No, you guys just want to freaking copy Paw Patrol. They know Paw Patrol is their biggest competition right now, and so that's what they're trying to mooch off of. Oh, well, Paw Patrol is about animals, so let's start including animals in our show about talking trains, and that'll make us beat Paw Patrol for sure. First off, Paw Patrol is the top-selling brand, period, right now. It's above Frozen, it's above Star Wars, and unless Big World, Big Adventures is a huge hit, there's no way in hell it's going to surpass Frozen or Star Wars. The problem is that Mattel is trying to appeal to the mass audiences when Thomas has always been like this niche thing. It was never meant to appeal to the masses, it was meant to appeal to kids who liked simple stories. It was never as big as Paw Patrol is. If you look at the Google search results, it's not even a competition. The problem is that they're making the toys so gimmicky, like, oh, flips and hyperglow, turbo, You're trying to draw in people who never cared about Thomas in the first place, and it's not working. If you guys haven't noticed, Mattel's stock prices and sales have been going down the crapper, and they're in serious financial trouble. They're just cutting corners left and right to try and save pennies on production costs. This is not going to work. You're taking away everything the kids liked about this show and just forcing in things to make it more generic. They've said they're trying to make this more like other kids shows. Shouldn't that do the opposite effect of what you're looking for. The whole reason anything is usually successful is because it stands out, not because it's similar to everything else. Why do you think Pokemon is so popular?
Oh, God damn it, this sucks.
I think their biggest push is the fact that the show has a faster pace now. So episodes are shorter now by 2 minutes, which, okay, whatever. They usually didn't use episode runtimes to their fullest extent. Season 8 to 12 were 7 minutes. The problem is how ADHD fast the show is. Like, it's like, hey kids! And that's not what kids watch the show for. They watch the show because it's gentle and it's innocent and it's down to earth. That's why kids watch the show. You're acting like the kids who did watch the show before this whole reboot were only watching it because they were forcing themselves to, and that they never actually liked it. No, by doing this, you're alienating the kids who like the calm tone and the gentle visuals. Italy aired a Valentine's Day episode just the other day from the recording of this video. Thomas helps Rosie, and so then Bill and Ben and Diesel are just like, oh wow, you guys are in love. And so then they basically just spend the entire episode trying to prove, you know, we're not in love. Personally, I'm super opposed to shipping, especially if it's in the actual show. Now, again, I know the whole point of the episode is to show, no, Thomas and Rosie aren't in love. Okay, that's fine. I like the moral, you know, just because a boy and a girl are friends does not mean that they're romantically interested in each other. Okay, whatever, I'll take that. My real problem is that they imply, okay, Thomas and Rosie aren't in love, but other engines can be in love. And then people are trying to justify that, oh, well, in the Railway series, they say Thomas loves Annie and Clarabelle very much. Not romantically, he doesn't. There's a difference between being affectionate towards someone and caring about them versus being romantically attached to them. It's like how in The Adventure Begins, they took once an engine attached to a train was afraid of a few drops of rain, they took that too literally. And so they made it so that Henry was literally deathly terrified of the rain. Even though the whole point of the original story was that he was cocky and he didn't want his paint getting spoiled. If you want to ship talking trains, don't put it in the show. I have no problem with shipping trains in like fan fiction, because whatever, it's fan fiction, do what you want. But the second they put it in the actual show was where I just said, nope, I'm done. This whole revamp goes against everything Thomas is. It's not charming, it's not calm, it's not down to earth, it's not smart, it's just garbage. As much as we all crap on seasons 8 through 16, the reason those were bad was because the people working on them didn't understand what Thomas was. Season 22 has the same production team as seasons 17 through 21, which basically tells you that the current production team knows what Thomas should be, considering how good most of those seasons were. They're just like, nah, we gotta do mind-numbing crap to keep kids' attention, come on. Thomas was always for kids who cared about trains. It's always been a niche thing, and it's never going to have total universal appeal. I wish Mattel would understand that, but I don't know. If they want to dumb down a successful show to try and appeal to the masses of people who never cared about it in the first place, then okay. I'm 90% sure it's going to crash and burn, but the movie has premiered theatrically in the UK, and it was bad. It's not Journey Beyond Sodor bad, where it's a fun story, but goes against the Thomas universe. It's like, it's more Day of the Diesels bad. So there's no plot, very few redeeming moments, and it just treats the audience with very little respect. I don't know what Mattel thinks they're doing. The reason sales are slumping is because the toys are crap. Wood has sold terribly, and it already got discontinued as a result. I'm not a business expert or anything, but I can tell you that if you cheapen your toys, that's going to make people less likely to buy them. And then they're like, no, it must be Paw Patrol's fault. But if you'll notice, Mattel's stocks started tanking around the time Paw Patrol came onto the scene, so like 2013, 2014. And yet Mattel is acting like it's a new issue. It's not. It might not even have been because of Thomas, but they panicked, assumed it was because of Thomas, and started redesigning the toys to make them easier to produce. People are like, oh, well, why don't you just paint the wood trains? A little kid should not have to paint their fucking Thomas the Tank Engine blue because the manufacturer didn't feel like doing it. Another big issue with Big World, Big Adventures is that they've said there's going to be more fantasy sequences. They've said there's going to be at least one in every episode. And here's what I don't get. They cut the episode runtime by 2 minutes for this season. And so then they're going and wasting the time they have left with fantasy sequences that have no bearing on the plot, and they can't be to sell merch because none of the fantasy sequences have toys relating to them. I just find it funny that the majority of revenue made on Thomas is from the merchandise, right? And they didn't think to fix the merchandise. No, let's make the show absolute garbage. Foolproof plan. It's kind of funny that a bunch of teenagers on the internet seem to understand basic things like this more than a multi-billion-dollar corporation. You think that people who went to college for years studying business would understand business to some extent, just some extent. Clearly they don't. It's gonna fail, and I'm gonna laugh. I'm gonna laugh hard.